In the small town of Dalesbridge, nestled between sprawling fields and the relentless rush of a gray sea, lived Eleanor. Her house, a faded yellow two-story structure, seemed always on the verge of being reclaimed by the surrounding wilderness, its paint peeling like sunburned skin, its garden untamed and wild. Within these walls, Eleanor clutched her world together, threadbare and fraying at the edges. It was on a stormy afternoon in May, the kind that brings with it the anticipation of renewal, that Eleanor found herself standing by her living room window. She watched as the rain pelted mercilessly against the glass, the droplets racing one another to the sill. Each drop echoed a moment of her past, a torrent of memories she fought daily to navigate. Once, Eleanor had been part of a bustling family unit, vibrant with the laughter of her two children and the comforting presence of her husband, Tom. He was a carpenter, his hands skilled and sure, and he filled their home with bespoke furniture that carried whispers of his love. However, the cruel onset of an unrelenting illness saw Tom wither before Eleanor's eyes, each day etching away a little more of the man she had loved. His eventual passing left her adrift in an ocean of grief. Eleanor's days blurred into a monochrome monotony, punctuated only by the visits from Laura and Daniel, her children, who tried in their own wavering ways to reach out to her. But grief is a peculiar beast. It isolates even in a crowd, muffles words in a conversation, leaves you gasping on a shore far from the promise of understanding. Laura, once the light of the household, found herself caught in the grips of an escalating addiction. Pills at first, to numb the pain of their father's death, then harsher substances that stole away the spark in her eyes. Daniel, younger and perhaps more fragile, faced his own battles with darkness, his depression a silent war, marked by scars over his skin, hidden beneath layers of clothing. Eleanor, surrounded by the crumbling remnants of her family, poured her solitude into her garden. She tended to her plants with a desperate kind of care, as if coaxing life from the soil could somehow echo back into her family. Roses, hydrangeas, and lilacs flourished under her care, a stark contrast to the chaos indoors. One rainy evening, while she was trimming a particularly stubborn rosebush, Eleanor found a nest. Sheltered among the dense branches were 3 speckled eggs, fragile and alone. The sight of them, so delicate yet so determined to exist, reignited something in her, a flicker of something like hope. Days turned into weeks, and the eggs became chicks. Eleanor watched over them with a maternal vigilance that she had thought long depleted. It wasn't long before Laura came into the garden, drawn perhaps by the same fragile strand of hope, to watch the chicks with her. Side by side, they began speaking, not just the superficial exchanges that had become their norm, but real, heartfelt dialogues. It was through these that Eleanor learned of Laura's struggles to overcome her dependencies, her attempts at recovery that were fraught with relapses and renewals. Encouraged by this fragile reconciliation, Eleanor reached out to Daniel, coaxing him from his isolated room to join them in the garden. The fresh air, the unspoken understanding between them over the fledglings, seemed to breathe some light into his somber eyes. As spring gave way to summer, the birds grew and eventually fledged, leaving the nest one bright morning. The small family watched in silent reverence. Each understood the symbolism of the moment, the courage to leave the safety of the nest and embrace the uncertainty of open skies. "We will get through this together," Eleanor murmured, her voice a fragile thread weaving between them. It was not a promise devoid of pain or relapse, but a simple, steadfast pledge of togetherness amidst their shared hardships. In the misery that had once permeated every corner of her home, small pockets of light began to emerge. Morning doves cooed in the early hours, their songs not of despair but of comfort, an anthem for the broken yet enduring family.